Hi guys, Tab here, hope you're all keeping well. Very quick video this week. It is all about the Porsche Taycan charging system. To the point, hopefully get the information across because there's so much conflicting information out there. Conflicting videos, conflicting forum posts, and honestly, by the end of my research, I was a little bit lost. So this video is going to be all about my experiences and also a bit of useful advice for your Taycan in the colder winter months, should you have a Taycan in a country where it's getting close to freezing. So let's go straight into the video. Okay, so here we are in the Taycan looking at the battery settings specifically. So there's a little battery icon here, and also there's a battery setting if I go to the home screen here in this section here. And honestly, the relationship between everything is really quite confusing at first. And this is what kind of throws people into the biggest state of confusion and brings them to tears. Certainly, I was really kind of struggling getting my head around the relationship with all of this, and honestly, just too much, but kind of simpler than it actually seems. So here you'll notice we've got no profiles active, no timers active. And if I click down here, nothing, no other options here apart from pre-cool heat and open the battery charging portals there, the doors. So if I enable the general charging profile here, you'll see I get an extra option here for direct charging. What is that? Well, with everything off, as it is now, everything off, no profiles enabled, whenever I plug the Taycan in, it will charge till this hits 100%, or I tell it to manually stop and unplug it. All right, so you need to know that. If I've got a profile enabled, in order for that to be available, I have to have direct charging enabled. If that is, if I want to plug it in and have it charged to 100%. But there is all kinds of crazy conflicting info out there about how on earth you should charge a battery electric vehicle. Should it be to 80%, 100%? What charge should it get low to? Well, the consensus seems to be between 80% and 20% at the bottom end. Even Porsche's own information is conflicting, believe it or not. Their manual says 80% and their app now says 85%. So what on earth do you do? Should you do? Well, there's so many factors to talk about here and so many different situations for different people depending on tariffs, charge times, whereabouts they are, whether it's fast, and honestly, it's kind of mind-blowing. So I'm just going to show you what kind of works for me here and why I do it. The first thing to note is charging profiles only ever work on AC charging, right? DC charging is just going to carry on charging until it hits 100%. DC charging is fast charging, right, sort of 50 kilowatts and up. Your AC charging is going to be 22 kilowatts maximum. Mine's 7.4 at home. You don't want to be doing it any less than 3 because honestly, running the systems takes more energy than you put into the battery really, and you're just going to charge your car over a period of about 30 years. So Porsche recommend you should be looking at sort of 7 kilowatts really ideally for AC charging. I think they recommend that, don't quote me, but more juice the better. Now, let's say you want to get a bit fancy here. So I've got the general charging profile enabled here. You can see that. What is it? Well, effectively, I have a minimum charge state of 55. So if I get home and I plug it in and my vehicle is at 20%, it's going to bring it up to 55% and then stop charging. Optimized charging here is the ability for it to communicate with your charger. Say the charger will hold it on a suspend or pause mode until you get to that low tariff at night. If your charger isn't capable of doing that, you can set a preferred charge time there and it will only do it during that specific window. Also, it's worthy of noting here that these general charging profiles are location, let's get rid of that one there, location aware. So should I want to add a new profile there, if it's ever going to add a new profile, hello, I think I've broken it. Yeah, there you go, Taycan broken. I think it's thinking about that there. Of course, it's thinking about, give it its dues. It was thinking about it there because it actually communicates with your Porsche app and the cloud. So these are stored in the cloud and you can access these from the Porsche app as well. So you can see that I can put a location in. So when the car is at that location, this profile will be enabled. So very simply, you click on that and then you put the address in. I don't really want to cover that here, but this is about the relationships between the timers and the profiles. So if I just delete him again, the profiles will hit before the timer. So in my experience, the general charging profile works before the timer. Now, there's been people that have said, well, I've got a general profile enabled and it's at whatever percentage, and when it hits that percentage, 30 minutes later, my car starts charging again. Now, I think that might have been a bug in the earlier versions of the Taycan PCM. My experience is, once it gets to the allocated charge here, it will sit there and do nothing forever, which is great, because that's kind of what you want it to do. Why have I got it at 55%? Because I charge elsewhere as well. I also charge at work, and this is kind of what works best for me. So if I go into a timer here, what is a timer? And this is where it gets kind of cool, and this is what you really should be doing during winter if you're making regular trips. Now, lithium-ion batteries work best between about 10 Celsius and 30 Celsius, I believe. The Porsche Taycan wants to be sort of between about 25 to 30 Celsius at best. If you're starting your car and it's freezing outside and the battery's going to be freezing, the battery needs to get up to temp to work properly. You'll know if the battery's cold. You won't get any regen braking taking place there. You won't get any charge going back into the battery. The battery needs to get up to temp to work properly, and that sort of temp, let's just say 25 Celsius-ish. Now, if it's 0 degrees outside, the battery is going to expend energy getting up to temperature first before it can work properly, and that is going to drain charge to get there. Now, the Taycan charge is very limited, and if you're only running between 20 and 80%, your Taycan charge is even more limited as it is. So a good habit to get into is to enable, in fact, let me just add a new one here. So the idea here is that you want to have, let's just say you're going to work every day, you just enable that from Monday to Friday, right? Nice and simple there. So you've got your repeating pattern, and at the time you want to leave. So basically what the Taycan is going to do is get it to this level of charge here before you leave, and you can set your pre-cool and heat if you wanted to get it. If it's cold, have the cabin heated up to 20% or whatever. Do that here as well. But the important thing to note here is, if you do this, the battery is already going to be warm by the time you leave your house, and it's going to have a huge bearing on your already pretty low range because you're in a Taycan. So you want to be getting into this mindset of thinking about battery temperature as much as possible. You want to have that battery at the optimum temperature before you start riding. So charge it before you go. Maybe you want to charge it to sort of 60%. Do the rest of your charging at work, which is fine as well, because then when you leave, the battery is again going to be at that optimum temperature. And also, any pre-cooling or heating is going to be done not from the battery, but from the AC that you plugged into. So a little bit better on the battery. But that is the important bit of advice here. I can't stress that enough. You want to think about having your battery at that optimum temperature before you start driving. Simple as that. So how is this specific example, this specific setup here going to work for me? This overview between the timer and the profile, how is it actually going to work, this specific setup? So when I get home, let's just say I get home at 6 p.m. at night and my battery is at 20%. I plug it in, it's going to charge straight away until 55%, and then it's going to stop. It's going to do nothing else. Leave the vehicle plugged in there, right? Because I've got this timer enabled as well. I want to have it pre-cooled, preheated to 18 Celsius and a target charge of 85%. When we get to about 2 a.m. that evening, let's just say, that morning, sorry, 2 a.m. that morning, 2 a.m. is definitely in the morning, it is going to start, and don't quote me, that's roughly right, it's going to start charging again to bring the car up to 85% in time for me to leave, and it's going to hold it at 85% once it does. It's also going to preheat, pre-cool the cabin using that AC power. So that, it really is that simple, and I don't like the UI here. It's way more complicated than it needs to be, if you ask me. Hopefully they're going to work on simplifying this at some point in the future. It's just much more intuitive, because I'm sure it is, or I'm sure it could be. But that is it. But you've got a lot of control here over how it works and what you do. You can actually overheat a Taycan battery as well. I don't know what point that is. I'm not going to quote any numbers, but if you're blasting around a track, the battery will get so hot that it will go into a battery preservation mode and limit the power out from the battery till it cools down again. So you can actually overheat a battery as well, but that's something to note. But really just wanted to cover the importance of having pre-warmed battery when it's cold in those cold winter months. So really think about that if you're not doing that already, because it's going to benefit your Taycan and your battery life massively, which is important, right? That's it. Quick video. Hope it helped. Do take care. See you on the next one. Bye for now.